Now we're going to dig into that story about Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice and the questions over how and why she unmasked Trump administration officials named in intelligence reports. Now, that term unmasking is new for most of us. Here's how it works. When the U.S. spies on a foreign target, an American may get caught up in the surveillance. Those names are not revealed. John Smith becomes U.S. person. But national security officials can ask for the names to be unmasked if they feel it's necessary to understand the intelligence. Unmasking is legal. Rules are in place for how it's done. Leaking an unmasked name to the press is not legal. ABC's Cecilia Vega is covering the story from the White House. Good morning, Cecilia.
George, good morning to you. And there is a strong denial from Susan Rice. She said she did not leak any of those unmasked names, and she said she did nothing illegal. But Democrats and Republicans see this one very differently. The left sees Susan Rice as a scapegoat. The right sees her as the smoking gun that proves the president's wiretapping claims. This morning, allies of President Trump joining in a chorus of anger. 3 Republican members of Congress sending this letter to Senate and House Intelligence Committees demanding that President Obama's former national security advisor be called to testify, saying that Susan Rice's behavior appears negligent at best and criminal at worst. To them, she could be the smoking gun that proves President Obama wiretapped President Trump. But from Rice, a firm denial.
I leaked nothing to nobody and never have and never would.
She does admit that she asked to unmask the identities of Americans picked up by surveillance. But she says it was all part of her job.
This is not anything political has been alleged. That's absolutely false. We can't be passive consumers of this information and do our jobs effectively to protect the American people.
Rice would not name names, but sources tell ABC News that as the intelligence community investigated Russia's election meddling, in some cases, Trump campaign and transition officials were caught up in surveillance. Rice requesting their identities. Republican lawmakers outraged.
So if this is what people are saying it is, this is totally unusual and I think totally wrong and inappropriate.
And Senator Rand Paul tweeting, "Smoking gun found." But Rice says there was nothing illegal and there was no wiretapping.
The intelligence community, the director of the FBI, has made that very clear. There was no such collection, surveillance on Trump Tower or Trump individuals.
So an adamant denial there. Another Republican calls Rice the typhoid Mary of the Obama administration. Surprisingly, the White House has been pretty restrained on this one. George, Sean Spicer calling these reports about Rice and unmasking troubling.
Okay, Cecilia, thanks very much. Let's bring in John Avlon, editor-in-chief of the Daily Beast, also author of the new book, Washington's Farewell, Founding Fathers' Warning to Future Generations. Thanks for coming in.
Great.
John, let's try to unpack this whole unmasking controversy, sure, if it is indeed a controversy. As Cecilia said in the piece, unmasking legal, proper, routine for national security officials. If that information were leaked, that would be a problem.
Yes. That's exactly right. But there's not evidence at this point. It also goes to the intent of any unmasking. What's happening here is obviously it's the politicization of national security, an attempt to deflect from the focus of much of the energetic point on Capitol Hill right now, which is the FBI investigation about possible Russian contact with the Trump transition and campaign. But this is being pumped up by partisan media as something at least equivalent to validate the president's claims.
And so expect a lot more. Nothing to do with the president's claims about wiretapping.
Nothing to do with wiretapping at all. But that distinction is without a difference to most hardcore partisans right now, who are desperately trying to either defend the president or deflect away from the main investigation.
Also in Washington, it's a busy, busy week in Washington right now. It's going on right now on the floor of the Senate. You see this filibuster by the Democrats. Jeff Merkley, the senator from Oregon, is right there talking. He's been talking through the night about Judge Gorsuch. Now, this is over, though. Come Friday, Judge Gorsuch is going to be Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. I guess the question is, will this change in the rules, this nuclear option, what kind of impact will it have down the road?
Look, and that's the real story. Cut to the chase. You know, Mitch McConnell pulls the nuclear option. Gorsuch becomes a Supreme Court Justice. But it's the change of raising that level to a Supreme Court Justice. That is a change in precedent. And Democrats knew that endgame when they opposed him. And here's the real problem. The standard, as you know, isn't whether you disagree with the judge. It's whether he's qualified to sit. And he presented himself as a conservative but a conciliator. And that makes it very difficult to hold that line. So now the nuclear option applies to Supreme Court justices. Will the filibuster stand in other areas?
We will see how it plays out. Ivanka Trump stepping out a little bit. She's now an official White House employee, gave an interview just yesterday where she took on that ad in Saturday Night Live where, you know, the perfume ad, complicit. Here was her answer.
If being complicit is wanting to is wanting to be a force for good and to make a positive impact, then I'm complicit.
Now, it has been reported that she has been a moderating influence on her father. She also said she disagrees with him at times. But now you've got the situation where Ivanka and her husband, Jared, in many ways, the two most powerful people next to the president in the White House.
Yeah, that's a problem within most American standards. I mean, it's nepotism. It's a princeling phenomenon. And obviously, that's not the definition of complicit. The idea is if you're going to stand for certain values, you're going to fight for them in the White House. And how did you get there? And if it's purely based on bloodline, not personal experience, that's a problem outside America's best traditions. So that's something that they're going to have to confront and prove themselves in the line of fire.
John Evelyn, thanks very much
Thank
for coming
you, George.
in.